Countless artists have made it a central theme in their work. Musicians have sung about it, and many philosophers have waxed poetically about it. Chase after money and security, and your heart will never unclench. Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. Do your work, then step back. The only path to serenity. Lao Tzu. They all seem to agree, keeping up with the Joneses is not good for you. More specifically, it's not good for your mental health. In the course of my research, I have found that there are adverse issues associated with consumerism and materialism on an individual's mental health. Consumerism is a social and economic concept that is centered on the methodical establishment and promotion of purchasing items or services in even greater quantities. Materialism is how an individual or group decides to spend their resources, chiefly money and time. In common use, materialism refers to someone who focuses on obtaining wealth, possessions, and having the right image. In 1905, sociologist Max Weber published his book, The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. In it, he wrote the Protestant work ethic was the reason behind Northern Europe's evolution of capitalism, when large numbers of people went to work on their own endeavors and engaged in trade and the accumulation of wealth. Almost prophetically, Weber concluded,
Working 9 to 5, what a way to make a living, barely getting by. It's all taking and no giving, they just use your mind and they never give you credit. It's enough to drive you crazy if you let it.
In 1999, the movie Fight Club was released, starring Edward Norton and Brad Pitt, based on the 1996 Chuck Palahniuk novel of the same name. A key point of the plot centers on Edward Norton's mentally unbalanced character eschewing modern societal value systems in an attempt to find a sense of well-being, happiness. In the course of the film, Brad Pitt's character has a memorable line.
Advertising has us chasing cars and clothes, working jobs we hate, so we can buy shit we don't need.
This seems to me to have been the logical progression from what Weber had written about over 100 years ago. What is there left to do after accumulating wealth other than to spend it? The following statistics, compiled by the New Roadmap Foundation, an organization dedicated to lowering consumption in North America, tells the story of how our patterns of consumption affect our lives.
In life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money. That's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. Your love gives me such a thrill, but your love won't pay my bills. I want money.
Shop, and then shop some more. The acquisition and accumulation of wealth has a long history of being the ruler which individuals and society use to judge their worth and esteem. Quite often it is a desire to overcome one's level of stratification that spurs on further acquisition. An As noted economist and sociologist Thorstein Veblen wrote in The Theory of the Leisure Class, in any community where goods are held in severalty, it is necessary, in order to his own peace of mind, that an individual should possess as large a portion of goods as others with whom he is accustomed to class himself, and it is extremely gratifying to possess something more than others. This is not to say there are no other reasons to grow one's wealth other than the need to excel in financial standing, and to gain the respect and envy of others in a social group. The desire for added comfort and security from want is present as a motive in every stage of the process of accumulation in modern industrial communities. However, the level of adequacy in these respects is in turn greatly affected by the practice of economic rivalry. To a great extent, this competition shapes the means and selects the standard of living. Most of the luxuries and many of the so-called comforts of life are not indispensable but positive hindrances to the elevation of mankind. None can be an impartial or wise observer of human life but from the vantage ground of what we should call voluntary poverty. Henry David Thoreau. So what happens when we devote so much time and energy to the pursuit of stuff? In 1993, Richard Ryan and Tim Kasser began a series of studies for whom materialistic values are relatively important. What they found is, the more materialistic values are at the center of our lives, the more our quality of life is diminished. The Ryan-Kasser studies, conducted through questionnaires on adolescents, college students, and adults, revealed the more subjects care about materialism, the less they are happy and satisfied in life, and the more they are anxious, depressed, and unhappy, all of which are used as indicators of a healthy mental and personal well-being. Secondly, the more people care about materialism, the less they engage in behaviors that help other people, such as sharing or helping, and the more they engage in behaviors that hurt other people, like hostility and manipulating others. Social critics and psychologists have often suggested that consumer culture breeds a narcissistic personality. Patricia and Jacob Cohen conducted a large-scale study in 1996 with over 700 12 to 20-year-olds with similar results as Ryan and Kasser. The adolescents were then questioned by psychologists using a standard interview designed to identify mental disorders. Subjects were evaluated for almost every significant disorder mental health professionals are likely to treat, including depression, anxiety, ADD, and behavior disorders, as well as personality disorders such as narcissism, obsessive behavior, and paranoia. The odds ratio indicates how much more likely a highly materialistic individual is to have a disorder than someone who is not materialistic, or does not place a high priority on wealth. For example, an odds ratio of 1 means that a materialistic teen is no more likely to have a particular disorder than the average person. An odds ratio of 1.50 means that materialistic teen is 1.5 times as likely to have the diagnosis, and so on. One of the earliest studies that show a negative relationship between materialism and well-being were written in 1984 and 1985 by Russell Belk, a professor of marketing at the University of Utah. In it, he discusses 3 main characteristics or traits of materialistic individuals. First, they are possessive because they prefer to own and keep things rather than borrow, rent, or throw things out. Second, they are non-generous and unwilling to share their possessions with others. Third, materialistic people tend to covet the possessions of others, feeling displeasure when others have things they desire. 3 additional consumer research papers have replicated Belk's findings that materialistic individuals, compared with people low in materialism, were likely to report that they were less happy and less satisfied with their lives. In 1990, Watchell and Blatt's study demonstrated a link to depression, and in 1995, Schroeder and Dougal showed a link to social anxiety. Marketing professors Marcia Richens and Scott Dawson had an 800-person randomized survey in 1992 that revealed materialists reported less satisfaction with their lives overall, with their family, their income, their relationships with friends, as well as with how much fun they have. Other researchers who used Richens and Dawson's questionnaire have found that materialistic people also reported lower self-satisfaction and self-actualization than non-materialistic people. The previously referenced studies were all done in America, but additional studies have been done abroad by other researchers. Studies in Australia, Canada, China, Denmark, England, Germany, India, Romania, Russia, South Korea, Singapore, and Turkey have all had similar results, that materialism has adverse effects on well-being. As you have seen, there have been many studies that all find the effects of materialism to be detrimental to an individual and societal well-being. I had a very difficult time finding anything that spoke to the contrary. One account is a fictionalized rationalization for materialism from the classic 1987 Oliver Stone film, Wall Street. Michael Douglas's character, Gordon Gekko, speaks before a group of investors in what has become an iconic scene.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all of its forms. Greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind, and greed, you mark my words, will not only save Teldar Paper, but that other malfunctioning corporation called the USA.
The other instance was a recently published finding by Angus Deaton, an economist at the Center for Health and Well-Being at Princeton, and Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman. Upon reviewing 2008 and 2009 surveys for the Gallup Healthways Well-Being Index, they concluded that you can indeed buy your happiness. The caveat is, this seems to top out at $75,000 a year. Any additional funds above that may make them feel more successful in life, but bears no improvement on their sense of well-being. Money is not the culprit here. Money is neither good nor bad for mental health, as long as one is not living in poverty. We all know wonderful people of modest means and intolerable people of great wealth. The culprit is the culture of affluence, and it affects a wide swath of people living in America. The culture of affluence values stuff over people, competition over cooperation, and the individual over the group. Whether it's My Super Sweet 16, the latest escapades of Paris Hilton or Lindsay Lohan, or the cruelest version of Halo or Grand Theft Auto, we are saturated with a culture that, in spite of our affluence, is bankrupt.
Can't buy me love, love, can't buy me love. I'll buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if that makes you feel alright. I'll get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. 'Cause I don't care too much for money, but money can't buy me love. I'll give you all I've got to give if you say you love me too. I may not have a lot to give, but what I got I'll give to you. I don't care too much for money. Money can buy